In the early 1990s, Garavito approached 10-year-old Carlos Alberto in the Circasia district of Quindío. He offered him gifts and 200 pesos in exchange for work, then drove him to Alto de la Taza, where he spoke affectionately with the child. Upon arriving in a secluded mountainous area, Garavito stabbed Carlos before tying him up, raping and torturing him. Garavito then asked Carlos if he enjoyed it. Insulted and frightened by Garavito, Carlos replied that he did, prompting Garavito to leave, saying, "See you next week. That's how I like it, and that's how you like it." Branferne Bernal Alvarez was a 16-year-old boy who worked with his father in the cockfighting business in the 1990s. While Bernal was tending to the roosters in the cockpit, Garavito took him to a secluded spot and threatened him with a knife. He then proceeded to tie him up, sexually assault him, and torture him, including stabbing him 7 times with a screwdriver, while raping him and beating the young man until he was weak. Bernal broke free and escaped from Garavito. According to Garavito, he primarily targeted children from humble backgrounds, from the working class, the homeless, peasants, and orphans. Garavito would seek out children and lure them with small gifts, such as money and candy, or temporary jobs, thanks to his power. He is said to have preyed on young children with sweet faces and blue or green eyes. Garavito himself boasted of his predilection for innocent children with fair skin and hair. Born and raised in the Hispanic Paisa region of Colombia, Garavito knew exactly where to find victims who met his criteria. Fearing the dark, Garavito approached them in broad daylight in public places, from the countryside to the busy city streets. He also drank brandy near schools in the evenings, waiting for unsuspecting victims. He offered them easy work in exchange for money, and dressed in various costumes, from a Catholic priest to a school teacher to an elderly man, to more effectively attract victims. To prevent suspicion of his activities, Garavito constantly changed his disguises. Beginning in the 1980s, minors from poor backgrounds and other so-called disposable groups began rapidly disappearing from the streets of Colombia. Due to the decades-long civil war, the disappearances of victims were unlikely to be reported. A group of children discovered a skeleton in Pereira while playing soccer on November 7, 1998. But authorities paid little attention until November 15th, when mass graves containing the remains of up to 36 children, almost all boys, were uncovered, showing signs of being bound, sexually abused, and tortured. A total of 41 children were discovered in Risaralda department, with 27 children discovered in the neighboring Cauca Valley. This large number of missing children prompted a widespread investigation, as these murders were not confined to a specific area. The brutality was so vicious that authorities initially assumed the killings were carried out by a satanic cult or an international child trafficking ring. However, the public prosecutor's office soon determined that one man was likely responsible, given the widespread use of nylon ropes and liquor bottle caps found at all the crime scenes. On February 6, 1999, outside the city of Palmyra, the bodies of 2 naked children were found lying side by side on a hill near a sugarcane field. The next day, just meters away, they discovered the body of another child. All 3 bodies had their hands bound and bore signs of sexual assault. The victims' throats were severely slit, and there were bruises on their backs, genitals, legs, and buttocks. The murder weapon was found in the same area where the bodies were found. Garavito had passed out, partially naked, over the body of a child, drunk, holding a cigarette in his left hand, setting the sugarcane field on fire. He suffered severe burns in the process, leaving behind his money, glasses, shorts, shoes, and burnt underwear. Receipts and a letter containing the address of his girlfriend, Graciela Zabaleta, were also found. Through his glasses, authorities were able to determine that the killer was middle-aged and suffered from astigmatism in his left eye. His shoes also showed that he walked with a limp and was 163 to 167 centimeters tall. They falsely arrested a local sex offender named Pedro Pablo Ramirez Garcia, 44 years old, and with a limp in his right foot. While two boys disappeared in Pereira, a young boy identified Garcia as the man who had tried to assault him. He remained in prison until more children began disappearing in Bogotá. Meanwhile, Aldemar Duran, the lead investigator, began to suspect Garavito was the wanted killer. Garavito's girlfriend was contacted. She told police she had not seen him since December. However, she gave the police a black canvas bag Garavito had left in her possession, which contained several of his belongings. These items included photographs of young children, detailed diaries of his crimes, tally marks of his victims, and invoices. This new information led them to Garavito's home, but the property was empty. Investigators believed Garavito was either traveling for work or looking for his next victim. Garcia was released after Duran was able to track down Garavito's girlfriend and sister. Local police arrested Garavito a few days later on an unrelated charge of attempted rape of 12-year-old John Ivan Sabogal. On April 22, 1999, Garavito was drinking brandy that evening when he came across Sabogal selling lottery tickets in the city of Villavicencio. Introducing himself as Bonifacio Moreira Lescano, a local politician, Garavito proceeded to grab Sabogal at knife point before threatening the child into silence. Garavito pretended to hug Sabogal, escorted him to a taxi before forcing him to climb a barbed wire fence leading to a secluded hillside. Here, Garavito proceeded to restrain Sabogal while repeatedly shouting, "Am I a sadist?" He then taunted the child with the razor, yelling various obscenities while masturbating over him. A 16-year-old homeless boy was close enough to hear the struggle between Garavito and the boy. The teen began cursing and throwing stones at Garavito. Garavito chased the teen with his machete. The two boys fled to the Rosa Blanca Ranch located on La Coralina Road in Villavicencio, where they were met by a 12-year-old girl. Garavito later arrived at the ranch and aggressively asked the girl for directions. She directed Garavito to the woods, where he got lost. The police were contacted, which triggered a search. Authorities found Garavito emerging from the woods around 7 p.m. and urged angry locals not to get involved in the search. He gave them a fake ID and claimed to be politician Lescano. Despite this, they suspected the man was Garavito. However, on July 4, 1999, their suspicions were confirmed. For the Colombian Ministry of Justice, Garavito's confession wasn't enough. Garavito suffered from a rare eye condition found only in men of a certain age. His glasses were specially designed for his unique condition. These special glasses were found at the crime scene. Garavito also left behind bottles of brandy, his underwear, and his shoes. DNA was found on the victims, along with other items they left behind. Police scheduled an eye exam for the entire prison where Garavito was being held, and the results would help police match the glasses to Garavito. Making it mandatory for all inmates, this reduced Garavito's suspicions and prevented him from lying about his eyesight. His 165-centimeter height and staggering were also crucial in linking him to the investigators' findings. While Garavito was out of his cell, investigators took DNA samples from his pillow and living area. DNA found on the victims matched DNA found in Garavito's cell. Garavito was interrogated for more than 12 hours in October. One investigator read his crimes aloud until he cried. He explained that he drank alcohol and sought out young boys. He maintained that he was not homosexual, but that he had been a victim of childhood sexual abuse and raped young boys before killing them, confessing to approximately 140 children in various locations. He was convicted on 138 of the 172 counts. Garavito was sentenced to 1,853 years and 9 days in prison, the longest sentence in Colombian history. However, Colombian law limits prison terms to 40 years, and because Garavito helped police find the victims' bodies, his sentence was reduced to 22 years.
Garavito served his sentence in a maximum security prison in Valledupar, El Cesar Department, Colombia. He was held separately from all other inmates for fear of being killed immediately. He would have been eligible for parole in 2023 after serving 3/5 of his sentence. In 2021, a judge denied Garavito's request for early release for good behavior on the grounds that he had not paid a fine for his victims. Garavito remained optimistic, having expressed to Colombian Senator Carlos Moreno de Caro his clear plans to enter the Colombian Congress, enter the ministry as a Pentecostal pastor, and marry a woman with the hope that he would be able to help abused children upon his release. Garavito suffered from severe eye cancer and leukemia, which left him blind, weak, and exhausted, requiring daily blood transfusions. He spent most of his time making handcuffs, earrings, and necklaces in the Valledupar prison's medical unit. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder and noted narcissistic personality traits. Garavito died in a hospital in Valledupar on October 12, 2023, at the age of 66. Thus, the life of the most notorious criminal in history came to an end.